Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right then, let's get started. On the show this week, the foreign minister of Taliban-ruled government of Afghanistan makes an unprecedented visit to India. Will it reshape regional power dynamics? In a landmark ruling, the International Criminal Court convicts a Sudanese warlord of war crimes in Darfur. And a YouTube special on the chaos that unfolded on the world's highest peak after a fierce storm strands hundreds of climbers. All that and much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. Our cover story is about a diplomatic thaw that's shaking up South Asia's fragile fault lines. The unprecedented visit of Afghanistan's foreign minister Maulvi Amir Khan Muttaqi to India. It's not just a reset, it's a seismic shift. We'll tell you why, but first a quick word about the man at the center of it all. Maulvi Amir Khan Muttaqi is the Taliban's acting foreign minister. Maulvi is a title, it means an Islamic scholar. Now, born in 1970 in Afghanistan's dusty Helmand province, Muttaqi cut his teeth as a young jihadi fighting the Soviets in the 1980s. He fled to Pakistan as a refugee and steeped himself in religious studies. In October 1996, following the Taliban's capture of Kabul, he became the acting Minister of Information and Culture and the official spokesperson for the group. He went on to become the Education Minister in the year 2000. Today, he is the face of a regime that's desperate for legitimacy. He is one of several Taliban leaders who is under UN sanctions. There's a travel ban against him and his known assets are frozen. So how did this visit come about and why is it being called unprecedented? Let me break it down for you. On 30th September, the UN Security Council's Taliban Sanctions Committee, chaired by Pakistan no less, granted Muttaqi a rare exemption. It enabled him to visit India from the 9th to the 16th of October. No Taliban leader had set foot in India since the group recaptured Kabul on 15th August 2021. So Muttaqi is the first top Taliban minister to visit New Delhi for talks that could potentially rewrite the neighborhood's rule book. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met Maulvi Muttaqi in person for the first time on 10th October. Now, towards the end of their talks, India announced its decision to further deepen cooperation in healthcare, public infrastructure and capacity building. India also announced the delivery of food supplies to those affected by the recent earthquake. Minister Jaishankar handed over 5 ambulances to the Afghan minister as well. This was part of a larger gift of 20 ambulances and other medical equipment that India has decided to send to Kabul as a gesture of goodwill. For its part, the Afghan side invited Indian companies to invest in the mining sector. Minister Jaishankar had one other announcement to make. Take a listen.
India is fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Afghanistan. Closer cooperation between us contributes to your national development as well as regional stability and resilience. To enhance that, I am pleased to announce today the upgrading of India's technical mission in Kabul to the status of Embassy of India.
And it is a big announcement, no doubt. So does it mean that India recognizes the Taliban government? Yes, says former Indian ambassador Dilip Sinha.
fact is that when Muttaqi came today, he's been welcomed as the foreign minister of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which is the formal name that the Taliban give to their government. So it is a formal recognition.
Now, I should add that the thaw in India's ties with the Taliban did not happen overnight. The ice has been melting for some time. In fact, the ball was set rolling immediately after the Taliban stormed Kabul in 2021. India's ambassador to Qatar at the time met Sheikh Mohammed Abbas Tanakzai, the head of Taliban's political office in Doha, on 31st August, a little over a fortnight after Taliban came to rule Afghanistan for the second time in 2 decades. The envoy raised India's concern that Afghanistan soil should not be used for anti-Indian activities and terrorism. In November 2024, an Indian diplomat, J.P. Singh, called on Afghanistan's acting defense minister, Mullah Muhammad Yaqub, the son of Taliban's late founder, Mullah Muhammad Omar, in Kabul. Mullah Omar was also the emir of Afghanistan between 1996 and 2001. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri called on Muttaqi in Dubai in January 2025. Muttaqi hosted an Indian diplomat, Anand Prakash, in Kabul on 27th April. Minister Jaishankar spoke to Muttaqi in May. The phone call took place after the Taliban government condemned the 22nd April terror attack at Pahalgam in India. Jaishankar spoke to Muttaqi again in the immediate aftermath of the 31st August earthquake that struck eastern Afghanistan. India delivered 1,000 family tents and 15 tons of food material as quake relief. So what explains the rethink in both New Delhi and Kabul? Pragmatism, pure and simple. India would be looking to resume cooperation with Afghanistan across a range of areas such as trade, education, healthcare, food security, mobility, connectivity, infrastructure development, and humanitarian assistance. For the Taliban, it's a lifeline, validation from a regional and global player. Given the difficulties in its ties with Pakistan, Taliban has been distancing itself from its former benefactor in order to show its independence to foreign donors. As Kabul warms to New Delhi, Islamabad's alliance with the Taliban is cracking like parched earth. Here's some context for you. In September 2021, just days after Kabul returned to power, the then ISIF chief Faiz Hamid made a triumphant visit to Kabul. After all, Pakistan's spy agency and its ideological fellow traveler, the Taliban, go back a long way. In fact, the Haqqani network, a Pakistani ally and a part of the Taliban, were the first to enter Kabul on 15th August, the day Kabul fell. Hamid was seen sipping tea in the foyer of a 5-star hotel in the Afghan capital. He interacted briefly with a Western journalist.
People in the Taliban?
I'm not clear. Maybe right now.
What do you hope will come out of what do you hope is going to happen now in Afghanistan? What is your
I have just landed and we are working for peace and stability in Afghanistan. Don't worry. Everything will.
But everything was not okay. In February 2023, Hamid's successor, Nadeem Anjum, returned to Kabul, this time with Defense Minister Khwaja Asif in tow. The mood was far from celebratory because the Taliban was no longer doing Pakistan's bidding. And that's something that the generals in Rawalpindi, who use Afghanistan for strategic depth and treat the Taliban as their proxy, simply could not digest. What hurt them was that the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which fought alongside the Taliban against US-backed NATO forces in Afghanistan, was now turning on Pakistan. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is a terror group in areas bordering Afghanistan and Pakistan. Clearly, chickens had come home to roost for the Pakistan that's accused of being the epicenter of terrorism. What hurt generals in Pakistan even more was that the Taliban was not persuading or prevailing upon the TTP to stop its attacks inside Pakistan, especially after the TTP called off a ceasefire on 28 November 2022. What made things worse was that all this was happening at a time when Pakistan's economy was fragile and the country was dependent on foreign aid. Adding insult to injury for Pakistan, Taliban's Defence Minister Mullah Muhammad Yaqub was publicly leading efforts to build relations with India. He even urged the Indian government to train the Taliban. A miffed Pakistani government retaliated by deporting more than 3 million Afghan migrants and refugees. Now, you should know something else. At the heart of the Pakistan-Afghanistan tensions lies the Durand Line, the de facto border the British colonial rulers drew in 1893. No Afghan government has recognized or accepted the 2,640-kilometer-long Durand Line. The Taliban calls it a colonial wound, dividing the Pashtuns who live on either side of the Durand Line. The relationship between Taliban and Pakistan has worsened so dramatically that on 9th October, Pakistan bombed Kabul. The timing of the aerial attack coincided with Muttaqi's maiden visit to India. An Indian analyst, Brahma Chilani, says it exposes Islamabad's desperation to reassert control over a regime slipping from its grip. Clearly, the rapprochement between India and Taliban rule Afghanistan has touched a raw nerve in Pakistan. So to conclude, India-Taliban ties have come a long way since 1999, when Pakistani terrorists hijacked Indian Airlines flight that was en route from Kathmandu to New Delhi. It eventually landed in Taliban-held Kandahar. 1 passenger was murdered. 155 passengers and crew were held hostage for 8 days. The standoff ended only after India released 3 Pakistani terrorists from its jails. Masood Azhar, who came to lead the Jaish-e-Mohammed and masterminded the 2019 Pulwama attack. Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh, who later kidnapped and killed US journalist Daniel Pearl, and Mushtaq Ahmed Zargar. But not before a team of officials flew in from New Delhi to negotiate with the Taliban and the hijackers. It included a man who is today India's National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval. Time for a short break. Keep watching DD India. Don't go anywhere.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching Voice of the Global South on DD India. After 2 decades of waiting, the wheels of justice have finally turned for Sudan. On 6th October, the International Criminal Court convicted a former leader of a militia in Sudan of war crimes and crimes against humanity for his role in Darfur. Ali Muhammad Ali Abd al-Rahman, also known by his alias Ali Khosheb, was found guilty of multiple offences including rape, murder and torture, which were committed between August 2003 and April of 2004. Khosheb conducted a scorched earth campaign that wiped out entire villages, including women and children, when the Sudanese government allied with local militias to stamp out a 2003 rebellion in Darfur. He is the first person convicted by the ICC for crimes in the Darfur conflict since the court began its investigations in 2005. In a comprehensive 355-page verdict, the ICC found Khosheb guilty beyond any reasonable doubt of 27 counts of crimes.
Convinced that the accused is guilty beyond reasonable doubt of the crimes with which he has been charged. Its verdicts are unanimous.
The court will pronounce the sentence at a later date. He could get a maximum of life imprisonment. The presiding judge mentioned an incident when Kushaib loaded 50 civilians onto trucks, beating some with axes before ordering his troops to execute them. The court concluded that Kushaib personally took part in beatings and was present while ordering these executions. These crimes were committed during the war that broke out in Darfur in 2003. The Darfur conflict broke out after non-Arab rebel groups rose up against an Arab-dominated government to demand an end to decades of political and economic marginalization. Sudan's president at the time, Omar al-Bashir, permitted aerial bombings and raids by the Janjaweed militia. Now, Ali Kushaib was a pivotal leader of the Janjaweed. During his trial, survivors described horrific acts, including the burning down of villages, the slaughter of men and boys, and women being forced into sexual slavery. According to UN, 300,000 people were killed and 2.7 million displaced in Darfur. Al-Bashir has since been charged by the ICC with crimes including genocide, but he has not been handed over to face justice at The Hague. Currently, he is in military custody in Sudan. The court said the crimes were committed in the context of a wider state policy. This finding leaves the door open for further trials arising out of the Sudan conflict. The court investigated the definition of war crimes and crimes against humanity by considering the involvement of the Sudanese government. Kushaib was transferred to ICC custody in 2020 after surrendering in the Central African Republic. He pleaded not guilty to charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity when his trial opened in April of 2022. He argued that he was not the person known as Ali Kushaib. The conflict lasted from 2003 to 2020 and was one of the world's gravest humanitarian disasters, with allegations of ethnic cleansing and genocide against the region's non-Arab population. The Rapid Support Forces is now the central antagonist battling Sudan's military in the current civil war. The paramilitary group was born out of the effort by the Sudanese government to integrate the Janjaweed into a formal structure. The transition highlights a long hiring of militias and the consistent use of sexual violence as a tool of war throughout both conflicts. The systematic violence that defined the Janjaweed era is tragically being repeated today. The UK, the US, and various human rights organizations have accused the Rapid Support Forces of actively carrying out ethnic cleansing against non-Arab communities in Darfur. Sudan's current conflict is not without historical precedent. Over the past 70 years, the country has experienced 20 attempted coups, ranking second only to Bolivia in the frequency of such events. In addition, Sudan has endured two protracted civil wars, the most recent of which culminated in 2011 with the secession of South Sudan, now recognized as Africa's newest sovereign state and the 193rd member of the UN. The ongoing civil war in Sudan has reached a critical flashpoint in El Fasher, where 13 people were killed in an attack on one of the city's last remaining hospitals. On 7th October, the Rapid Support Forces shelled the Saudi hospital several times in an assault that left 16 others injured, including a doctor and a nurse. A group of Sudanese medics called it a war crime. The city of El Fasher, the last military stronghold of the Sudanese army in the Darfur region, is facing a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. It's been under relentless siege by the Rapid Support Forces for more than 17 months now, with the assault intensifying sharply in recent weeks. The RSF is mounting a fierce assault on El Fasher in an attempt to seize control of the city from its rival, the Sudanese army. The UN says since April 2023, the war has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced about 15 million, and pushed nearly 25 million into acute hunger. It's triggered one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. Once again, Darfur is a battleground, and the same groups of people who were targeted 2 decades ago are suffering a fresh wave of violence. What began as a regional rebellion has become a long, tragic chapter in Sudan's history, one that is still being written today. And with that, it's a wrap on Voice of the Global South. Thanks for watching.